It's 7 o'clock and time for the Urbana Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission to be called to order. Can we have a roll call?
Annie Adams.
Here.
Susan Jones. Here. Bruce Michelson.
Here.
Audrey Ishii.
Here.
Sartak Prasad.
Here.
Daniel Sapphire.
Here.
Nancy Westcott.
Here.
John Zeman. Here. Keenan Portis. All present.
Do we have any changes to the agenda?
I know we have a tight agenda, so I don't want to take too much time, but if it's possible, I wouldn't mind presenting a short presentation on light bulbs. And I didn't think it was that important, but I was actually talking to a neighbor this morning, and I found out people are kind of hacking light bulbs in our city right now. So I just, if it's possible, I wouldn't mind presenting on light bulbs.
Light bulbs?
Yep, light bulbs. It'll make sense when the light bulbs that are in the beautiful lamps that are around our city are the wrong colors being put in the lamps.
Would you want to put it, would you propose putting this after the walking trail, the Sage Trail, or?
Absolutely. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
And it would be like, how long?
Shoot, 10 minutes, maybe.
Added at the end.
Yeah, actually, I know
That sounds good.
there's a typo in the agenda. E should say unfinished business.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, right. Okay, well,
Or
why-
Sue just said if there's time.
I know that the Lincoln Avenue corridor study is going to be extremely brief. It's just, in fact, your Tootsie Roll probably says it all. Yeah, how about right there after that? Because it also, Lincoln Avenue is one that has a lot of lights.
Right.
Lights involved.
Sounds good. And I
Okay.
can even present it the following time. It's just I'm going to have to share it with the neighborhood first, which I would prefer to share it here first before sharing it with the
Okay.
neighborhood listserv. That's all I'm trying to say.
Let's take a vote on whether we should make that change, or can I make that change? Let's take a vote.
Let's take a vote. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Would someone move to?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes. We don't have minutes from the previous meeting, but we do have a new member here. John, is this a good time to introduce?
Oh, I'd say so. Yep. Yeah, so Keenan, would you like to just go ahead and introduce yourself? I know Keenan's coming to us as a member from the Park District, so we're very glad to have you, and thank you for joining us, especially on short notice. I know we just recently confirmed your appointment with you, so apologize again for that. But yeah, you want to say a few things about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Keenan Portis. I just graduated from the University of
Kenan, do you have your microphone on? I'm sorry, we didn't
oh, there it is,
orient
yeah.
you at all.
Yeah, so I'm Keenan Portis. I just graduated U of I this past May with a bachelor's in urban planning. And shortly after that, I started at the Park District, thanks to Kara Dudek. She was my professor, and she kind of taught me everything she knows. So, yeah. And yeah, I just accepted today, so I'm glad I can be here.
Thank you. We're glad you're here.
Welcome. Kenan, right? Kenan, okay. Public input. Do we have public input today? No, okay. And we have unfinished business next. And we're going to, at the last meeting, or possibly 2 meetings, I think, we've probably talked about the e-bike issues. So Bruce Michelson, would you like to talk about your resolution?
As concise and straightforward as possible. I'm not wedded to any of the language here if it's inconsistent with the argot of such resolutions.
Do you have your microphone on?
Yeah, it is. Maybe I'll lean into it. Okay. Have a look at it. I think it's pretty clear. We've got 6 entities in this town. We all face the dilemma, challenge, opportunity, all of the above, of accommodating e-bikes, e-scooters, and any sorts of other e-transportation that manifests in our existing fabric of bikeways and streets and sidewalks, and a necessity to support or adopt policies which will protect not only the people who use this equipment, but the people who share the roads and the sidewalks and the other pathways with it. Things are moving too rapidly for us to, I think, get a grip on yet. I haven't seen any entity anywhere that's got a coalesced off-the-shelf policy that we could adopt. The dilemma I'm trying to address is we've got these 6 different groups, all of which are empowered to either legislate or regulate or to advise on those matters, and they need to be talking to each other. So this is simply a urging of the city council to urge those entities to get together on whatever listserv or other kind of communications platform consistent with FOIA and other regulations will keep them talking to each other about what they're wrestling with, what they're thinking about doing, and what they decide to do. That's basically it. We gotta get communications going laterally, or I think things are just gonna get worse.
I would also add MTD to the list.
MTD?
Yeah, because I think they would be, like, they're sharing the road too, and they're a major contributor. Oh, I just said, can we add MTD to the list also?
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, even though they don't make policies, they should be in on the discussion.
Sure.
I'm uncomfortable with specifically calling out e-bikes and e-scooters. I'm seeing e-skateboards and all sorts of devices. I'm wondering if we couldn't just go with micro-mobility is rapidly evolving.
I agree.
Including e-bikes and e-scooters?
Not, I just think you just say micro-mobility. If you want to say, and I don't think it's just electrified, because I mean, I could be wrong about that. You could say electrified micro-mobility if you wanted to, but I just think specifically calling out certain devices, you could say micro-mobility such as,
Right.
if you wanted to. It's just that I think it's so rapidly I mean, you know, on my commute into work, I'll see 6 or 7 different types of
Yeah, there
machines
are-
people are using.
Like, just today I saw like 2 people on that, like, this thick tire, one board thing, like, I don't know what it's called. Yeah,
Overboard, maybe?
yeah, like, there are, I would say, like, micro-mobility would be,
I'd go with what your corollary, including e-bikes and e-scooters, so people reading this will know what we're talking about.
yeah.
I mean, right now, micromobility is a bit of it's not quite common parlance yet for what we're dealing with.
Maybe you should say, like, including but not limited to?
Or just including, yeah.
We
Whatever you
did
like.
have confusion over the fatality at Schnucks, because he was listed as being in a scooter, possibly a wheelchair, and I think he ended up listed maybe under pedestrian fatalities, because he didn't seem to belong under bikes. So,
Motorized skateboards running around on Dearborn Street in Chicago, I saw them this morning, so, I mean, they're there. You're right, so micromobility including
Such
e-bikes.
or
and-
such as,
Such as,
because that
that
sort of means,
encompasses,
they're just examples.
sure.
Would it make sense to include some kind of a problem statement, like answering the why should we care? Because I think it's kind of taken for granted, in this group, but like, why is this a pressing issue? What is the problem?
I would say we're seeing increased stress on our bikes, our bike and street networks, because there are more users participating. There's more users what I'm personally seeing is more users participating on, shared mobility paths. And I don't want
I
to.
don't think we need to even, I think we do
No.
need to say, that people are concerned, but I think we can keep it very general, because we just want people to start talking.
My instinct is to keep it as succinct as possible.
Right.
I'm a retired English prof, and I tend to do that.
Do we know if there have been an increased number of accidents
Locally?
locally involving, these,
I know, like, at the corner of, the UGL is bound, like, it's currently, like, fenced in, and I don't think there were reports made, or, like, anybody reported it, but there was a skateboard and a pedestrian clash at the corner where the fence is. Again, like, it's because skateboards, like electric skateboards or e-bikes or scooters, they're sharing the shared use paths, and I mean, they're moving fast, and we can regulate like VOs or like bike share companies, but we cannot really regulate the personal
Mm-hmm.
devices. So,
And I don't
there-
think we need
there
to
are a
wait
little
for
bit of an
numbers.
increase, yeah.
I was gonna say that
I've been seeing, but
Well,
since
New-
the
the
New York
University of Illinois Police Department sent out a notification to all users of the University of Illinois system saying, we are just seeing increased tension between all different types of people moving at all different types of speeds. And I personally have experienced, there's a lot of people using what we would call micromobility, and that includes just pedal bikes who do not have driver's license. They've never gone through driver's license training. I mean, we all know that the number of drivers is dropping. So we have a lot of people who have never had to learn pass on your left. Like, I mean, when people pass me on the right, I just about lose my mind. So we're experiencing a lack of education and a lack of courtesy. People are going a lot faster than they should be. And I mean, I was the worst cyclist on the planet. I biked without lights, without a helmet. I was a jerk. I mean, I get it, but if there's any way we can take the edge off some of this, because again, we do have way more users using a wide variety of devices.
That might just be the language to add, there are increased users of people with more devices. It says e-bikes and e-scooters are rapidly evolving of U.S. transportation and recreation. And then maybe stick right in there, we have an increased number of users on our street and, on our networks. And then just add that, and then go back to uncertainty prevails with regard to, because I don't, we all need to be talking about this stuff with the 6 and the 7, with the people.
So I'm trying to keep it tight. So a rapidly evolving component of U.S. transportation and recreation and an expanded component of the local transportation system, something like that.
Or expanded,
Micromobility systems?
no, I think just the network, the
systems?
transportation systems, but then we want to say that there's more people using them.
Okay. Or an expanding presence locally.
Yeah, mm-hmm. And that just, because I'm not sure we have to convince people there's a problem.
New York City's seen many more scooter fatalities than bike fatalities in the last, this year, so far this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's going to happen, and I think there's going to be a huge panic and, possible overreaction if we don't anticipate.
Right.
This gives us a possibility, a fighting chance to get out ahead of it in some phases.
Right.
My worry, to get it down to specifics, is somebody's going to be out walking on the
Right.
pathways in Meadowbrook Park. He's going to get cleaned by an e-scooter, and people are going to wonder how this happened, why something hadn't been discussed beforehand. So it's not just due diligence, it's a chance maybe to get out a little ahead of that.
I'd be willing to share this at the public input of the CUATS meeting, if the resolution that passes, because they do not have the park districts at the CUATS meeting, although certainly they'd be welcome to attend, but they aren't members. But that's where the various entities get together and discuss. And at the moment, they have a segment that's called agency reports. And each entity goes around and says, And what they talk about is their pavement and road construction. But that might be a place to share where they're going with policy so they can start, because otherwise I'm not sure how this happens, that they start talking to each other. And CUATS is an open meeting, it's a public meeting.
That's a
So
great
they
idea.
definitely would
And
be.
I like that idea, Audrey, because I think, like, where I'm experiencing the most stress is on the thinner, the trails that are not, the spaces that are not 8 feet. And so we are just gonna have to start building wider spaces for people to use. And so I think that's, at the end of the day, that's what's gonna, I believe that will be the end goal, is just bigger spaces for people to use. So.
I'll agree with you, Audrey. I think CUATS is a very ready avenue for this kind of discussion. And I was trying to find it, I couldn't, but I'm thinking, I'm pretty sure, Bruce, I saw somewhere some stats about the uptick in, like, you know, micromobility, e-bike ridership. And that was the kind of thing I was just thinking of, just like something to hit council with, is like a stat of like, they're, you know, in the last like 5 years or whatever time frame, we've gone from like this many to this many. And it's like, just as awareness of, I'm just guessing some council members may not have the awareness that people in this this room do, but yeah.
And we want to add MTD to it by your suggestion, okay. So, I mean, I'm just going through the pros to see if we're any closer to voting on it. Because e-bikes and e-scooters are a rapidly evolving component of U.S. transportation and recreation and an expanding presence locally. Well, we want to change that to micro. Okay. Got it, okay. Micro-mobility such as e-bikes and e-scooters. Okay, picking it up from there. Gun certainly prevails with regard to their accommodation and regulation for the safety of operators and pedestrians. Locally, at least 7 entities are impacted, blah, 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 and MTD at the end. Recognize the importance of clear and consistent. I just switched 6 to 7 in the second line, in the second paragraph. Sustain interactions among these 7 entities to 1, 2, 3, as on the page.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. I'm ready to vote.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I move that we approve this resolution
With language changes.
with the language changes.
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you, Bruce. And next we have Annie presenting on the Urbanus Sage Trail.
It's on now. So I'm going to talk about the Sage Walking Trail. I'm going to do a quick review of what it is, and then I'll present some options for what the trail would look like. And the last slide should have been next steps, but I just had it as questions, because obviously we can also ask questions. So the Sage Trail Walking Tour, Urbana, Illinois. The Sage Trail is based on the successful Turquoise Trail Walking Tour, a 2.5-mile loop through downtown Tucson that highlights structures and 23 sites of historical interest and is marked by a turquoise line on the sidewalk. So these are pictures of the Turquoise Trail, and you can see that little circle that says number 12. So we would want to add in little elements like that. And so if you're at number 12, you would have a map, and whether it's a digital map or a physical map, and you would be able to read about what is at number 12. And this is the point in the trail in which it starts entering a neighborhood district. And you do just follow this painted line. I assume they're just using the same machine that we use to paint stripes on our streets. So the Urbana Sage Walking Trail Tour. I came up with the Sage name. I was kind of thinking about Lincoln, and we do have native sage. And it seemed like it was a nice play on words. And I also just like the idea that it's easy to say, the Sage Trail. People had a lot of requests for where that trail would go. So me and a committee of a couple other people came up with 2 tours. One tour is green and the other tour is purple. They loop through Urbana's neighborhoods, downtown, and nearby university that highlights structures and sites of cultural interest marked by a continuous 4-inch green or purple line on the sidewalk. What will you see on the Sage Trail? Walking the Sage Trail, you will loop by hotel entrances, restaurants, bars, murals, sculptures, historical markers, historic neighborhoods, parks, landmarks, and city buildings. Explore Urbana like a native without a map or mobile phone. Learn about safe, enjoyable, low-stress walking connections to the farmers market, downtown, bars, parks, and the Boneyard Creek and University of Illinois. So the first one is a 2-mile loop, and it's purple. And all of these are loops. That image is not very good. It's a loop, so you would just start and end in the exact same spot. And you can start wherever, and you can end wherever. For purposes of ease, I started all of them at Hotel Royer. So you would walk out the hotel and you'd be like, what is this? What is this thing? Why is there paint on the ground? And you might start walking. And if you started walking and you started Googling, you would find that there is a 2-mile loop that you could do that would take you to Hotel Royer, then leads to Bohemia, goes past the Art Bar, Encanto, you do the mid-block crossing, you go through Goose Alley, you walk past the Native Prairie Rose Mural and the Rose Bowl Tavern, you walk past Mesita Grill, Analog Wine Bar, you go down to 25 O'Clock Brewery, Mama's African Kitchen, you see this large historical tree, bike and record store, art gallery. You then cut behind, next to Mama's African Kitchen, they put in a garden and a beautiful metal, it's not a trellis, but you'd walk under it. And you'd walk under that, you take a right, you head through a parking lot, and suddenly you see this gorgeous mural called Summer Rhythm Mural. You cross the street and you go to the Boneyard Creek Trail. In particular, we stayed above ground for all the Boneyard Creek things. We wanted people to be able to do this trail at any point. We didn't want them to feel uncomfortable. And we felt going below grade might be weird if you were a person traveling by yourself. We also did it with a baby stroller. So there are going to be pinch points if we agree to do this, some things that we would have to fix. And then, so you go through the Boneyard Creek Trail, the Station Theater, you'll see Broadway Food Hall, you would see Your Adventures in Time and Space, you'd see H Mart, you go past County Plaza, so we cross the street where the old Black Dog was, and you see County Plaza on your left, where it's my understanding a couple hundred new people will be working. You keep going straight, you see the Champaign County Courthouse, you're going to see the IMC, we're going to scoot you through where I drop my mail off frequently, the mailbox, I call it the mailbox parking lot. You go past Amara Yoga Studio, Lincoln Square Mall, Common Ground, and then at that point we had you straight through the parking lots, and there is actually a sidewalk, and there's a little loop through local neighborhoods. We tried really hard to not cross busy streets, and then we just loop you back. So that is the purple loop route. The green loop route is a little longer. Ideally, the green loop route's going to be a lot trickier. So my suggestion would be starting with the purple loop. The reason the green loop's a little tricky is I do know what streets the city owns, but it would be a much more beautiful trail if we could get a little paint on university property, which will obviously be highly controversial. But we can also do it without going through the university. So the green loop will start at Hotel Royer, head you through the Urbana Free Library, past that beautiful Todd Fram sculpture. You will see the American Football House, the Dance on Illinois murals, the Haleen Gateway, the Woolly Mammoth, Espresso Royale and Bread Co. You then head to the Red Oak Grain Garden, Illini Grove. You walk down Michigan Avenue. You see Carl Park. It's a little tricky how we end up getting back to the Royer, so Leal School playgrounds and gardens. We also wanted to make sure that there were like bathrooms, bathrooms and play spaces for kids. Seemed important, especially if you're trying to ask people to do a 3-mile loop. And again, we walked this with a stroller, and there's definitely pinch points. There's definitely areas that don't even have sidewalk. So there are some things that we would have to solve to make it accessible for everyone to be able to use. And then here's just some inspiration of what you might see on the trail. Red Oak Rain Garden, the Puma and Carl Park, another Todd Fram, the Todd Fram Aesop Fables, the Bike Shop, the Woolly Mammoth, the American Football House, the Boneyard Creek mural, dance mural, beautiful, love that Rose Bowl mural. And then that other mural down there is the one behind 25 o'clock. So who is the audience? Residents new to the city, wanting to explore, exercise, visitors to the university looking for a guided walk, tourists interested in historical markers. And then partners, we could maybe get a walking grant from America Walks, Urbana Free Library. I've spoken with the Urbana Free Library about what they could support or not support. Now that I actually have the more things, I can speak more intelligently with them. The Urbana Arts and Culture Commission, Urbana Historic Preservation Commission, Urbana Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Commission, Urbana Park District, University of Illinois, MTD, VO Ride, and Hotel Royer Urbana. That's it. Questions, deep thoughts, next steps.
What would the next steps be?
I think next steps are probably, John will have a better feel for this, but I think it would be to, I've spoken with city council members. People are very excited about this. I've spoken with people who work in the city. They're very excited about this. So people are very excited about this. And so as a person who's done a lot of projects, I understand initial excitement, but I also understand boots on the ground, that it's going to be a little tedious. I think there's like 2 steps. One is like, first off, we just need to kind of share this with folks, let people know, are you interested? Should we proceed? Should we start pursuing grant money? Like in my fantasy world, there would be a gorgeous like sage compass in front of like the Hotel Royer Urbana Free Library in that space there, because both paths actually cross there, and so it would be this gorgeous mural on the ground on the pavement there, and then it would be like a compass, and it would I can't make it. I don't paint. And then it would like, whoops, spin off into your purple and green spaces. But again, all of this is just an idea. So I think the first thing would be to say, yes, we'd like to do this. I think the second thing would be people like me and the person with the stroller and some other folks to just walk and find the pinch points, because we're gonna have to figure out how much this would cost. And I think the downtown loop would be the easiest loop to do first. And once we had success with the downtown loop, we may or may not be able to get the university on board. But I do know recruiting is a big deal for the university, and this is a great recruiting tool for them. And I also know it's great for families who are just kind of looking for something to do. It'd be like, oh, what's this? Let's just start walking. Let's see where it goes. So that would be my thought. But anyone else have any other ideas?
Could you go back to the downtown map?
This map was created by Apple.
Is
That
it-
was
so
made.
is
That was made by Strava.
It's squiggly because you walked this?
Oh yeah, and we thought we could make it to it's only a first walk. It's an initial walk. We thought we were hoping, the reason it kind of walks off the map is we were kind of hoping to go to Crystal Lake and like edge Crystal Lake. Right? Yeah, we realized crossing University Avenue was a no-go, especially if little kids. That's not happening. So we didn't think that was very friendly. So we had to kind of make it up a little bit. And it is kind of barely 2 miles. I would really want to check my figures. Maybe do it with Strava. Maybe Strava cheats a little. I don't know. But it's okay if it's 2 miles. I think it would be great.
Less than 2 miles, because the other proposed one is 3 miles, right? And it's kind of better to have a shorter one and a medium or longer one.
I think it'd be great to have 2 miles because you could do it on your lunch. And that's the other, ever since I've moved here, I've really been missing like a shared use path. Where like, so if I were jogging, I would know that I could like jog this and that would be 2 miles. And it'd be kind of fun. And you might see other people and that might be kind of fun. But I feel like people could do it on their lunch hour if it's 2 miles. I don't want to make it too much shorter than 2 miles because the narrative sounds kind of funny then. But I could do it, you know, we could cut out the neighborhood and then it would be like 1.5 miles, I think.
That was kind of, one of my thoughts was, what if it went down, instead of, you know, on the southeast corner, just kind of looping around? What's the name of the park on Vine? Is it Victory? No.
Hmm?
Is that Victory Park?
Blair Park?
Blair Park, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, Blair. Mhm.
That's a beautiful park that could
Yeah.
be part of this. Or if you wanted to make it shorter, I don't know. I know there's a lot of different opinions on Lincoln Square Mall, and I don't know if they'd even go for it, but maybe having like an offshoot to go through the mall.
Well, 24/7, we kind of want to create a 24/7 experience. But yeah, that was what we thought about too. And Blair Park might just be a little too far. But the advantage to Blair Park is there's play spaces and there's bathrooms, which all parents want. Parents want bathrooms, water, play spaces.
Yep.
So I think it's totally worth seeing if we could get it to go to Blair Park. Because it's gorgeous, the work the Park District has done there.
And from a kind of a boring like perspective, I think I'd suggest just when you get your route tuned up, check for who is the property owners. Are you staying within public space? Do you go into anybody else's property just to kind of to see how that plays out? It'd be good to identify that up front.
Yeah, it's all public space. I mean, I know I had a long discussion with, the university space is not. That's where it's a little tricky. FNS might have some of those sidewalks. Like, let's say you wanted to actually go under the Haling Gate. That's tricky. This loop, that's why I think you do this loop first. You get this loop through. The second loop is it's gorgeous. It's relaxing. I personally adore the second loop. So it's worth doing because it's very fun. If we can get the loop we want, where you walk through and suddenly you see a woolly mammoth, like how hilarious! Like people would just be like, "I'm moving to this city tomorrow. This is awesome." But that said, back to your question. Yeah, this is all public space. The only one is like at Mama D's. I was talking to, is it Bruce who owns 25 O'Clock? I was trying to ask him. I said, "Hey, we noticed that there's pavement here and things happening, and so we might have to talk to the landlord there." And I was just worried about like safety, if people feel comfortable, because basically I want to have people go down there because we have this gorgeous historic tree with an actual marker, and then there's just like this funky little there's a bike shop and a record store and an art gallery. And I mean, I remember the first time I saw those, I was like, I love this city. This is amazing. So I don't know. That's the only thing. It's just a little tricky because the sidewalk through that area is it's a little weird if you're like, but there's not a ton of heavy car traffic. So that's the slightly tricky part. But yeah, I think it's all public property. Well, Lincoln Square Mall, I don't know who owns the sidewalk on Lincoln Square Mall. That's
Just something to vet. I mean,
Yeah.
not saying you have to know it right now, but just something
Yeah.
to look for.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
And I think those spaces that maybe seem a little sketchy, the thing is they aren't. I mean, you go there and it's like this whole new world opens up, and it took me decades to find all these places, and this is pretty much one of my, daily routes is to just go around and see all this stuff. So
And
you've saved people decades of
of hard
Yes.
work, and you can get a beer on the route. The Turquoise Trail went through a convention center. You spent a lot of time walking through a massive, and this is Tucson, so it's hot. And I tried to keep things in the shade. Was my other thought was how do we make sure, because when it's super hot, no one wants to walk in the sun. So in Tucson, again, they went through this massive convention center, and I thought, okay, so it's a little boring walking through that parking lot to get to those neighborhoods. And so that's the bummer. That's the bummer with the, if those fences weren't up around the school, you'd be able to cut right through, and if there was like a sidewalk through the school, I'd be able to cut right through and head right over to Blair Park, which would be a lot more enjoyable than sending people around that fenced-in space of the high school. That's where it gets a little weird. Does that make sense? Like, you can cross the street and that parking lot, there's no space for anybody to walk to the high school that's legal. It's just a massive parking lot with some speed bumps, which is really bad for the students, and it's on my to-do list. You talk to the students, they're like, yeah, it's crazy. But
They did have a land use study that was
Mhm.
completed about 2 or 3 years ago that did address all those issues, including especially the lack of a path from Washington to the high school. You're walking through a parking lot, as you know.
yeah, because that would be
Um,
amazing. Because
yeah.
if there were a sidewalk there, then all you would do is you'd just go straight, you'd cross the street, you'd head straight through, and then there's that cut through the two buildings. You'd go past like the football fields, and then you could head straight, and I loved that little street before Blair Park. And then you just do because a lot of these things were just touching on stuff. So if a parent just sees Blair Park, they'd be like, oh, thank Odin, there is bathrooms, water, and play space. Like, I've been saved,
But you can, I mean, I don't know if this is another problem, like John mentioned, you can walk through the high school, between the high school and the middle school.
Yeah.
To Blair Park there,
Yeah.
that way. But again, you're walking through parking lots.
Yeah.
That's really not attractive, yeah.
Not the best.
Yeah.
But if there was a sidewalk there, and if there's future plans for a sidewalk there,
There are.
That would be
When that'll happen, I
amazing.
don't know. Yeah, but
Well,
anyway,
maybe
just
we
to
can
be aware,
encourage
there was
them.
a study
That's what
done.
I'm thinking,
Yeah.
that you make it with the wishes in the back of your mind, but make this happen, and people will say, gosh, if 20 times as many people are doing this, then it's going to be way more likely that people will say, we should get to Blair Park. And they'll get on Reddit and talk about it anyway, and do it, cut through anyway.
well, they're going to be impressed. They're going to, if they did both of them, they would see a woolly mammoth in one, and then what does CU Adventures in Time have some crazy stuff in front of their space? I mean,
Yeah.
what kind of city is this? Anyway, so I think refine the 2-mile loop. It sounds like I'll try one going to Blair Park, see if I can get that to work. And then I don't know, I don't know. Let me just make that my goal. Because I think we got to just tighten up the 2-mile loop a little. Does that seem fair?
I thought you had talked about like a Bloomberg challenge or something to get funding for this.
Yep.
Did you get funding?
Nope. The application went for the city wanted a mural in the parking lot, which I don't think they're going to get the grant because it's for transportation and intersections.
I wonder if a next step could be getting just like a quote for the paint. I don't know how much it costs.
Yeah, the paint's going to be expensive. What's going to be more expensive is actually fixing their sidewalks, but we do have a budget for fixing sidewalks, so it would be prioritizing these sidewalks. I mean, there's some spaces, Shel Silverstein lived here. The sidewalk does end in spaces. So there's a couple little spaces like that. But I did walk it with a mom who said, this was my route, Annie, over and over again. Like, I've done this route so many times. The 3-mile routes, like her beloved route. The 2-mile routes. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. Cool. Start trying to figure out cost on it.
John, does Urbana have any specifications where what type of paint to use or what kind of paint lasts better or is weatherized or?
It's good you asked that. We've been noticing that like the water-based paint that we use doesn't seem to last as long as it used to, and I think some of the formulas changed by regulations in the last 5 to 10 years. So we are kind of trying to see what would make sense, and for this kind of an application, it might make sense to use a higher quality paint that would stay longer. But yeah, and I think Dan's on the right track. It'd be good for us to have some, enough of an idea of a budget to look at it as like, okay, would this be something that you pursue that like have city staff do with city budget, and so like the city council would approve this in the budget. You know, would it be done as like a separate contracted effort that gets permitted through the city? You know, that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, and the way the turquoise trail was done was they just had this extra blue paint.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, you know, I obviously would prefer we choose like a gorgeous, you know how much the city loves having an opinion about something. So, you know, we can put up, you know, have people vote on their favorite purple. So that would, that's one idea. But yeah, so cool. So maybe try to tighten up the 2-mile loop and try to maybe get some numbers on like what sort of sidewalks, what sort of things might need to be addressed. Yep. That seem fair? And do we want to present this further than BPAC, or do we just want to kind of keep it tight here?
The other partners that you mentioned, that slide with the other partners, how many, and you mentioned you spoke to the library.
That's it.
That's all so far?
Yep. I
Didn't
mean,
you make
I mentioned it to the Arts and Culture Commission. They're on board. They would like to do it, but it's, you know, the Historic Preservation Commission, I told them I would share it to them once I had a map so they could see if there was anything we were missing, any big things we were missing. We are not going by Lincoln's house, just saying that now, where Lincoln spent the night or something. We did not go by that. That would be the 3-mile loop. I've talked to BPAC. The Park District does not know about it, but now they do. University of Illinois does not know about it, but now they do. MTD does not know, or VO, or the Hotel Royer. Yeah.
Well, if you'd like to tighten up the route a little bit, I can help make a pretty map if you'd like. I've done that before.
I would love a pretty map. Yeah, that would be great. I will Strava it next time because the Apple Watch. I think what happened was I was like, oh, I don't know how it happened. Like, I think we just started walking. Oh, it was like 90. You know, it was one of those like crazy hot days, and you're like, let's go. And we had like a little kid sleeping in a stroller, and I was like, oh my God, turn on the watch.
I think having like a cost estimate and, you know, a nice tightened map is a good way to approach partners and sets us up to go to city council.
Cool. And then do you want me to maybe just do an assessment? Yeah, I'll do an assessment of the 2-mile loop and just see sort of like what would need to happen to make that, to get that up to ADA accessibility codes. And see if there's any private ownership issues.
Yeah, well, and feel free to use the RPC sidewalk inventory, because you can go ahead and just look at where your route, you can look at how it's been scored.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah,
Okay.
so the sidewalk network inventory, the RPC, yep.
Wow, okay, me reading maps, not my strong point.
This one's really easy.
I mean, are you wondering why I want to make a map that is just literally paint on the ground, can't get lost? I mean, does this all come together for you now? All right, sounds good. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, intern at RPC, so if you need help with any of the sidewalk data,
Okay.
I can definitely help you with that.
Oh, that would be great. Thank you. Awesome.
But I would think the downtown businesses would like this. I mean, anything to bring people by their businesses, especially, you know, the Royer Hotel and Main Street. I mean, any excuse to bring people there is great.
That's actually its secret purpose.
I wonder, yeah, if economic development might be interested in it.
It sounds like a good sponsorship opportunity to me.
Yeah, that's kind of its secret purpose, is to have people just be like, why don't we go do the loop and have dinner? Yeah, and it keeps people, like people when they stay at the Royer, I want them to like walk out of the Royer and be like, what is this? Why don't we just like take a little walk and let's just see where this goes? Oh, look, there's food. So, yep, cool.
Yeah, I think Daniel made a really good point about economic development. We tend to for some reason, we're shunted aside in terms of economic development as if we have nothing to do with it, but
But
this
maybe
kind of
maybe
thing
this
has-
maybe the Sage Trail is what brings us all together.
Well, I don't know if the businesses be interested in, but like if they could paint or something on there instead of a little number, you know, maybe it's something to do with their business. Yeah, a logo or, you know, recommendation for what to buy in the grocery store. I kind of.
Yeah, also, the co-op has bathrooms and water too. That was the other thing I was gonna say. That's,
I don't recall if right now we have a Urbana business map that we hand out to tourists. We have and we haven't at various times, and I've been really disappointed when we haven't, because
Yep.
I've brought conferences here and you have nothing, you have
Yeah,
nothing
that's
to
why it's-
hand to them.
yeah, the Turquoise Trail is very clearly things that have been there forever and will be there forever. They don't really, we can overlay like a Google map with businesses, but you want to be a little careful with, you just got to be a little careful with businesses.
Well, I think the trail should be shown on the business map, assuming there's a
Oh,
map of
right.
introducing you to
Duh.
Urbana.
Right.
It could be, the businesses are there, and here's one, just like the parks are shown, or any other
Yeah.
point of interest.
Yeah, and I mean, I like the idea too of a budget, because there will be ongoing maintenance costs, right? Like, if you do rip out a sidewalk, you do have to put down new paint again. We all know that sidewalks and bike paths tend to have less paint wear and tear, than roads. So it should last a pretty good time, but you do want it to look good. But, yeah.
Yeah, there is a tendency to prefer one-time deals over things that need maintenance, right?
Yeah.
That become a standing capital project.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much,
Yeah,
Amy.
awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Awesome, yeah, I would love to take ownership of it, but I'm just happy. You have no idea how happy I was when I was in Tucson, and I just kept seeing this like blue line everywhere, and I'm like, what is this? And finally I just was like, started Googling it, and I'm like, oh, this is awesome.
Dolphins. Okay, in August, we talked about the fiscal year 2023 goals that we had established with Kara Dudek's efficient help on that. And we went over what had been achieved, what hadn't been achieved, and I'm not going to go repeat that right now, but a very large number of things were achieved. And I think it was a great idea to have annual goals, which John brought to the commission. I think some of those things maybe wouldn't have been achieved without that being actually a stated plan. So we're moving forward. I think our plan is to go ahead and do one for fiscal year 2024. And I sent to everybody, and you have in front of you a list of goals. Now, in the lower part of that list, at the bottom there, is the 5 themes that Kara had organized our previous goals under. And I think that we can do that. That's probably less important than just settling on what goals are important to us to achieve this year. And really awesome that we already have some goals achieved, perhaps. We've got the on goal 13. I'm sorry, it says 25. I think I have 25 miles per hour, so in the brain that everything is 25. Number 13, micromobility resolution. So hopefully we'll achieve that goal very shortly. One of the big goals was the parking and bike lanes, which John's going to report on next, from last year that we actually did achieve. That was a big win, or we'll see anyway. We'll hear news on that. So these are many of these things are have been on the agenda for some time, but we don't want to forget them. And I think we do want to push for them each year as something maybe we can achieve this year. So let me go. As a start at the beginning again, sorry. One thing I would mention is we have and this was passed out at the last meeting. We have a clear mission that was in our founding ordinance, and the vision that we have is really implied in that mission very strongly without being explicitly stated anywhere that I could find. We know that we want a walkable, bikeable city, but more than that, we really want streets that people want to be on. You know, not just that it's safe, not just that it's something that bad things don't happen to you, but good things happen to you, places that you want to be, as Annie was just describing. And I think that we might just want to think about whether we want to do a vision statement at some point that would encompass that. That's not something for tonight. It's just kind of overarching for our entire foundation. I think we've done great with just the very clear mission statement that we have so far. But I think it's a concern that that maybe we aren't as exciting to people because it almost seems like we're just have negative goals. You know, we're trying to stop things from happening rather than.
I think we can assign the vision statement to Bruce. I think we've got a
an
expert here.
We've got a wordsmith on hand and a visionary. Okay, well, that's just sort of an overarching thought. We've done great without it. I think we're getting there. It's just a concern and something that Annie just addressed very well. So this is from the sheet that's in front of you. We have the snow removal zone. If I just go through this, hopefully our discussion won't be too extended on any one thing. We've had that in the goal last year. We've had it in the goals for several years, actually, and we had mixed success on getting the snow removal zone. The main reason was it was put off for MCOR to see what happens with MCOR. Does anybody feel that we should put that on this year's goals or object to that idea? Any opinions? I know Nancy
Seems like an
mentioned it in
ongoing-
her discussion that she sent for the last meeting, the snow removal issue.
I think that's just one of those ongoing, we keep trying to find ways to make it happen.
Annie, you were involved in the last effort to expand that.
We had the city was on board for expansion, BPAC was on board for expansion. We just had a couple owners of large houses that were on corner lots that were rental units that were not on board for expansion. And I unfortunately was not able to attend the meeting when the owners of the large houses on corner lots came. And so at that point, city council, we had a different city council than we have now. So there's that. I would also like to say last year, I don't know about y'all, but I shoveled maybe once. Yeah, I do communications work for a living, and we put communications into a variety. We have this thing called Airtable, and we put things into a variety of things. And we could, if we want snow removal zone expanded, we could just say pause. Like we could just, because I agree with you. I don't think we should take it off. But I'm curious if any of us has the political willpower to pursue it, or if should we wait? I guess that's the question that you're asking. Do we pause? Do we keep it as top of mind, but just pause it? Or do we pursue it?
Well, sorry, Nancy, go ahead.
Well, I do know that the disability community would really like an expansion. I mean, the wheelchair community is really, they really are unhappy with snow shoveling. They love the MTD signs that was put out, or the safe routes to school, but they would really like an expansion of snow shoveling, snow removal.
I at least saw the council meeting at which the owners spoke, and it is really amazing in our political process how somebody showing up and having a point of view makes a big difference. You know, they just didn't want to shovel their walks. They might be out of town or, so it's funny how
Just thought it
much
was
that
so-
can sway.
I mean, I've lived in, more northern towns than this, and basically the landlord just telling me, like, if you're, Annie, you live here, you're gonna shovel, and I'll give you a discount, or I'll do this. Like, it was just funny to me that wasn't even like part of the discussion. It's like, of course, people don't mind maintaining properties if they get something out of it. Like,
Well,
it's-
yeah, and a lot of it can just be the luck of the draw for that evening. They could be tired with a long agenda and, yeah. So obviously this will rise to the top if we get a 2-foot snow. Maybe in the next month, Okay, so it sounds like we're going to sort of wait a little bit, but go ahead and keep it on and hope that something happens to. We have the ordinance that was drafted.
Yeah, and I
in
think,
that last effort.
I think Nancy's right. The disability community is on board and would be willing, if they'd be willing, we would be willing to work with them to get this in front of city council. If that is, if you have any connections, I think we'd be willing to work with them to represent what we presented before.
Okay.
Great. Okay, the Getting Around website, these are goals stated as things we want to see have happened rather than working towards it. I'm going again towards that vision. Our vision is the website is updated. I know we've had that hallucination for a really long time. And in fact, a subcommittee of Sue, Annie, and Nancy did already produce the draft design changes for that. So I think we'll keep that on there, knowing that we don't actually have the power to implement it, but just to keep checking, right? Are we due for a website overhaul, John?
Yeah, supposed to happen by the end of this year.
Okay, so we'll keep checking. So, okay, MTD and PACE representation to BPAC. MTD was always kind enough to send someone, even though they weren't officially required, and we could certainly invite them to come, but we don't have it in our bylaws at present, and it's kind of an omission in my thought. Now, we don't want to have the commission become so large that getting a quorum together is a problem. So I don't know if it would be a change in doing away with one at large or adding.
And I'd say at the very least, we do have 2 vacancies. We could at least have a targeted effort at recruitment.
We do have 2, the chair and an at-large at present.
Yep. So, I just, for us, to do an active recruitment and maybe targeting people from these organizations, I think could make a lot of sense.
Well, we actually have someone from PACE. Nancy's on the board of PACE.
Oh, you're just saying to make it more
To put it in the
official.
bylaw,
I'm sorry.
yeah. And just as we've always had an MTD rep, even though it's not in the bylaw until now, which, although we do have someone who's very knowledgeable about the MTD. But yeah, it might be good to put that in the bylaw. So important, not important. Any thoughts?
I think it's like, I'm not sure we want to have in the bylaws that they have to be there. Maybe that they're invited.
Well, it's a vacancy if they aren't present, right?
Okay.
Isn't that correct?
Okay,
It's
and
simply a
vacancies
vacancy.
don't-
It's not.
Okay.
It's not something required for us to meet or anything like
Gotcha.
that. I know we've had a vacancy in the past that's been open for 2 years or more sometimes.
Should we focus on trying to get someone from MTD instead of modifying the bylaws for now? Or
I think that would be great. The letter of invitation probably would have to come from the mayor, wouldn't it?
Technically, yeah, but I think, very much the mayor would be open to suggestions of, if we rally up and find somebody who's willing to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree that it would be good not to wait for it to be in the bylaws.
And is there a person who does safe routes to school? I know Cynthia was doing that, but she has passed the baton to somebody else. So it could be the person, if there's a person at MTD who's doing safe routes.
Is there, do you know?
I don't think Cynthia has passed the baton to anyone in particular, but yeah, the baton's on the floor right now. I'm not sure if the person who replaced me is going to take over management of that program or not. But I can reach out and see if they'd be interested in having anyone join BPAC and what they're doing with Safe Routes.
Great. Okay, so that's a keeper. Vibrant pedestrian tourist trail designed and promoted. That's our vision for next year. I don't think we would have it installed by this next year, but at least designed and promoted. Yeah. Is that reasonable? Okay. Pedestrian access to parks evaluated and enhanced. Nancy had some words from experience on trying to get to Crystal Lake Park from Broadway, for instance. I know that we've discussed it in a BPAC meeting some time ago about the offset of the driveway there doesn't lend itself to getting over to the pedestrian path.
The area, that parking lot from Jimmy John's crossing the street, that is such a dangerous spot. That really needs to have a beefed up crossing, similar to what is at Meadowbrook Park, I think, going into that park.
So that's technically a city of Urbana issue, but you coordinate with the parks, I assume, on things like that.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I mean, your crossing of Broadway, I mean, is what you're talking about, right?
Right.
Yeah, and that's primarily going to be a city item, yep.
Did you have other parks in mind too, Nancy, from your experience?
I would say that just the park that's behind Sunnycrest Mall, I think a lot of people do not know that that park is there, crossing Florida Avenue. I mean, I actually tried to find it from Florida Avenue, and I finally figured out that you had to go up Crescent, I think. But it's just right there, and it's not very well used, and I think that some signage or something to get to that park. In Victory Park, someone brought that up tonight. That's also, it was years before I knew Victory Park was like 10 blocks from my house, where I didn't have to cross Washington or Vine to get to a park with a little kid. You know, it's just amazing. So I just think that somehow getting some kind of wayfinding to parks would be really good. And in some cases, a cross street or
and I wonder,
a walkway.
we
across
have
the
this
street.
wonderful wayfinding plan that RPC produced, and I know that budgetary considerations prevented that from being implemented in whole, but I wonder if it would be possible to prioritize certain things like the parks, signs to indicate the parks are just, a quarter mile from you, those particular signs. I bet that wasn't, I don't know, I can't recall if that was in the plan or not, to do some sort of phased with just a few signs. Do you recall, John? I don't know.
No, and that predated me, so I haven't really gotten familiar with the wayfinding study yet.
Yeah, we approved it. It was getting ready to roll. We were going to roll it out, and then it just, all activity stopped on it.
Oh, it's not published? I thought the wayfinding report is
Remember, it was when
published.
Craig Schoenig was here, and
Yeah.
we chose what the signs would look like. We went through the whole process, and then meeting after meeting, we kept saying, "Where is it? What's happening?" And then nothing ever happened with it.
Okay. Sounds like something that needs to be checked. I thought it was actually published, but just there's no implementation because of the budgetary considerations.
Because that's even something we can't apply for a grant for. If it is about money, people love things, you know, grant commissions love if you're like, here's a plan. We would
Yeah.
like to implement this plan, and it's about walking and moving people through the city. Because remember, we were voting on whether it would be like 2 minutes or 2 miles, and is it the Arts District, or like anyway.
And it definitely it would be of interest to the Park District, I would think, as well.
We were working on something like that. I was doing some research of other wayfinding plans, but it's kind of been put off to the side now. I can ask about it. I was the one kind of researching and doing the work about it, but I think it would be very useful, yes.
That would be great, yeah. Can let us know what you find out. Okay,
So maybe even just changing the goal to, you know, promoting or moving something on the wayfinding plan.
That's what I was thinking, that our goal can be reactivating, pursuing the wayfinding plan.
okay, yeah, that sounds, and I guess the IDOT work on University Avenue is hopefully going to improve access to AMBUCs across University Avenue.
Yeah, that's my hope as well, from what I've heard about it.
Okay, the next item is speeds reduced to range. This is actually from the bicycle-friendly community report, suggesting that we lobby the state to have the communities have speed setting capabilities. Right now, we do, but it's expensive because you have to sign practically every corner, you know, at every entrance into a neighborhood. But whereas if you just say resident, you know, and some of the smaller communities are basically just saying this community is 25 unless signed otherwise.
How does the university do this? They don't have signs every corner, do they?
Yeah, they do.
They don't have to follow the same ordinances.
Because they're not
As
a
I
municipality,
understand it.
because they're land grant, or?
I'd asked this question to Roland like 3 months ago, and he said something about like the CATS committee, they talked about it, and it was, I think it predated Roland, so I think it was like 2012 or even before. They talked about it and decided the university district should have 25 miles an hour,
And
and
Yeah.
that's how it got implemented.
But they didn't have to put up signs every,
I think we do have signs everywhere.
there are? Okay.
Yeah.
I'd also like to add in, I was just recently up in Minneapolis, and they are aiming for 20 miles per hour. And they are putting up not Tyvek, I'm spacing the name of it. Like basically what you'd see in a yard sign. What's that stuff called, that plastic? But they're putting up fake signs that say 20 miles per hour is Vision Zero, slow streets, as a way to start prepping the city for the eventual rollout of 20 miles per hour. So just a heads up on the speed limit. I think the new speed limit, I mean, I find it incredible, but the new speed limit that they're going to go for throughout the city of Minneapolis and St. Paul, which is much bigger, way more traffic than we do, 20 miles per hour.
yeah, I saw several places that were 20 miles an hour on the East Coast. It was just in Maine and Boston, and they would have signs that said Special Safety District, 20 miles an hour. But 25 was the norm, which they had to lobby their state to allow them to have. So I think that's something, and one of the first steps I guess I would work on is maybe making a presentation about the research, who already has done 25, how many states. I understand it's, but I haven't been able to find a real definitive source. I've found some university sources that the states that have default residential 25 miles per hour may exceed the number who have 30, and in fact, our community and our whole communities in our whole state got downgraded by the People for Bikes.
And isn't Cynthia's the president of Bike Illinois, and isn't Bike Illinois Ride Illinois who's pursuing this? So I wonder if we could have Cynthia come in and tell us how we can be of assistance to Ride Illinois on this goal?
Yeah, I can check on that. We certainly could put a letter of support in with our legislatures, assuming we, vote on that. Okay.
I like the idea of a kind of bandwagon on an existing effort, like Ride Illinois is one, but I wonder if like Illinois Municipal League has anything in the works either, because it seems like several cities throughout Illinois would want that control.
Okay, well, I'm willing to work on this topic and report back on it. See what, research whether there's other organizations that are also working on that. Then we have obtain a Safe Streets for All grant. Even though we didn't get one last year, that it's expected to roll out again this year. And we saw what a short time frame there was between the announcement and the due date for the grant. So we really need to be on top of it early this time and be sure that the city's prepared to actually apply for it. And I did speak to Rita over at the RPC about whether, I made a presentation last time about the safety plan that they put out and whether there's a chance to focus on Urbana and maybe have Urbana be our safety plan also. And she does hope to get, if she doesn't get the entire grant that they put in for implementation, she does hope to get some planning, but she doesn't think that it would be able to focus on Urbana, as I understand it. So if we could get a grant, and then maybe we could talk about having that attached to it to get the grant for that funding, because it didn't sound like a significant addition to that safety plan was planned.
And also, Rita also mentioned to me that a lot of cities are going for 20 miles per hour. So
In
just a
Illinois?
heads up on that.
Is that in Illinois?
She said in general, people are going for 20 miles per hour.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
because I showed her the picture from Minneapolis that I took, and she goes, "Yep." She goes, "That's what I would prefer." And I
think
was
if-
surprised.
Yeah, and, okay, yeah, that's absolutely. If the signage is 20, maybe people will do 25. And regardless, that's going to kill a lot fewer than 30. Yeah. Okay,
Well,
so.
regardless of what the sign says, it would allow like, one day, 40 years from now, engineering to like design roads to that standard, right? Instead of for.
Good point. Yeah, it's really the design that determines the speed limit, not the sign. Yeah.
Sorry, I said
But-
40 years not to like draw, like, it's just, it takes a long time to build infrastructure. It's not a jab.
And that's very true. And also, the fact is that it's up to the political will of a community to tell the engineers what they want designed. If we want a 25-mile-per-hour street here, the engineers can design it. But a community has to state it. And it has to come from the grassroots, because if you wait for the state to decide these things, you could be waiting a long time. And they have other concerns. Their biggest concern is moving people rapidly from place to place, not life inside that particular city until the crash statistics become too bad to ignore. So it's up to the city. You can't just, sit and wait for someone to do it for you. It's really true. And then John, do you have any idea about the Safe Streets for All grant? We did already pass a resolution and present it, and so do you think we need to pass another one in order to bring that reminder to the attention of city and staff?
No, I mean, I think that, we're, we've learned a lot from the, review that BPAC did of the requirements and the, combined action plan, implementation grants. So, we have awareness for when the opportunity comes up next time to look to see.
Yeah, I'm just worried we'll learn about it in July and,
It was
maybe
my
it was April.
understanding the
Yeah.
last time was we just didn't have any humans to actually do the grant. So I'm wondering if we can't somehow help do the grant or give the city fillables or something like that. Because it was my understanding that was the pinch point. It wasn't that the city didn't want to do it. It was just that there was no humans. Either RPC did not have the bandwidth to do it, and no one at the city had the bandwidth to do it, because I think we all know grants take a long time to apply for. So that was my understanding. So I'm wondering if we can't help get a package together.
Well, one thing I think that we really could play a role is demonstration projects. If people have ideas about the quick build demonstration projects.
Yeah.
I know, well, I'm sure John has ideas, but whether he has time to put them together.
I would definitely be open to those ideas. I think it'd be, yeah, I agree.
Okay, well, some of the stuff might just be something that we put on our standing agenda to check in on monthly, and that might be the way it doesn't fall through the cracks. I think we'll probably hear about the announcements for 2023, is it, or 4, in January or February, and then the call for proposals with the sometimes confusing rules comes out about April, I think, and it's due in July. Okay, number 9, one thing we had done is we talked about East Main Street after the fatality of a pedestrian out there about 3 years ago now, and we actually did something about it. I think we passed a resolution, but I know we made a vote on going back and re-examining the KRT plans in light of what we really hadn't thought about, which was lots of pedestrians are currently using East Main Street to get to Aldi's and Walmart with strollers and children, and we had not really thought about that when we were examining the KRT design plan options.
We had considered it. It's just that it's my understanding that that's not part of the actual city of Urbana, and so there's actually not funding for that sidewalk for implementation. Because obviously the other issue with that area regarding getting to the KRT is you have to bike in a road that has 35-mile-per-hour speed limit right now. It's insane.
Yeah, so we actually changed our recommendation from the review we had done earlier of the KRT plan to consider whether we couldn't help with accessibility by moving the recommendation we had, which may or may not, influence.
Honestly, a cheap light fix would be the rural road treatment, which you put wide side paths on either side and you make the shared lane in the middle. There's really not that much traffic in that area, and there are more people walking and biking probably than cars, but again.
Well, this is a particular case that it just comes back to haunt us because you had, clearly predicted that we were going to have a fatality there, and then we did. So it's something that I think we need to go. So this resolution was passed where we were changing our opinion on which KRT option, which hasn't been funded yet, by the way, we were in favor of. And I just don't think that it went to anyone. So that's the point here, is just that it needs to go to someone. We need to make sure it's not just, a tree fell in the forest and no one heard the sound. So I can do that one. I think Bill, do you recall this? Bill had brought it up. I know we have a lot of new people who don't remember any of this.
Yeah, I do recall it. I think if we want to bring it up, someone would have to just kind of deep dive on it and present some options. And I keep going back to this presentation Cynthia gave, which I watch a lot of European murder mysteries. So not heavy, light, fun one. Okay, fun. I don't know. Anyway, but they show a lot of these thin roads, and the thin roads have wide bike and pedestrian paths on either side, and then the middle road is a shared space. And that is inexpensive infrastructure that we could do. I know we have buses that go out there, so we'd have to, that's why it would be great to have someone from the MTD on this commission to help advise us on these types of spaces, but we can make it work with those spaces because that is how the woman was killed. She got off a bus and a car killed her.
Yeah, well, there's a speed limit issue there that it.
Yeah, so
it
but if we made it a
rises.
rural road treatment, which is inexpensive, and we don't have to add, because that was the problem Craig said, we'd have to add in sewage, we'd have to lift up the road, we cannot make that road any wider. If we cannot make the road wider, but we have lots of different types of humans using the road, there are other options.
Yeah, that
Just using
particular road was also pictured in the comprehensive plan, which, they may or may not keep it, but, but it's shown as a particular example of very unfriendly, lacking pedestrian infrastructure.
And it's an economic development issue for the city of Urbana, because people do not want to ride out to the Kickapoo Rail Trail with their children. And even people who are not like strong riders are deeply uncomfortable trying to ride in the middle of a 30, because that's what it is. What we're asking people to do is ride in the middle of a 35-mile-per-hour road with blind curves. It's incredibly dangerous and uncomfortable, and it's very frustrating for me because people would like to come to downtown Urbana for breakfast or brunch and use the Kickapoo Rail Trail, but if that's our connectivity right now, it's just an economic money loss.
Yeah, it's horrifying, and we did address it for a time, but then it hasn't come up in the past year or two. So I'm just suggesting we revisit that and make sure that the sound of a tree falling in the forest is heard. Okay,
And just one
Washington
more
Street
thing.
issues, we were addressed by a member of the public on this, and Annie's talked about it several times. I did notice that the neighborhoods in Champaign complained bitterly about similar speeding on West Green Street, and they just decided to put in a couple stop signs on West Green. Now, Urbana, and I won't say it's wrong, Urbana has a statement that we don't put stop signs in for controlling speed, and that's very understandable. But it seems to be what Champaign is kind of doing there,
Well,
trying to slow the
I think
drivers down.
that's like a national policy, though, that Urbana follows.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Stop signs are not intended to slow speed. They're supposed
Right.
to make intersections safer.
Yeah, and I can't speak to whether Champaign had the, what warrants they use for their stop signs, but I did see that too, and, I know they, definitely got their voices heard there. And this is, that's what you're talking about with West Green Street, gotcha, thanks.
Right. That's what I was just referring to the fact that was in the paper this week, that they're putting in a couple stop signs. I mean, they already have stop signs on the cross streets, of course. But they just decided to go ahead and add them on Green Street itself to kind of cool the jets of some of the drivers. Well, that would be my understanding, but there were crashes there too. And I don't know whether crashes on Washington Street have even come close to warranting stop signs. So did someone want to take that up, or is that going to be lesser importance this year? We have a lot on our plate.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a really great list. I was actually gonna just see if anybody thought this might make sense. Would it make sense for this to be created into like a doodle poll or something like that, where we could, offline kind of vote our
Ranked
priorities?
choice. Ranked choice voting.
And then it also could be an opportunity for people to say, like, oh, I'd like to volunteer to, work on these, 3 or something like that. Just an idea of something to give us time to kind of digest and think about these and set ourselves kind of a high priority targets for the year. But
Basically give people buckets to work in.
Right, and the ones people are willing to work on are going to be the priorities. Decision made.
Okay, so that sounds like a great idea, because this is a lot on our plate, and I haven't even addressed if anybody wants to bring new ideas too. The Lincoln Avenue Corridor Study, this is one that should be fairly easy, and we'll go over that a little bit in the next talk, but just that we stay actively following these things. So many plans happen, and just staying aware and updating, and also we always get opportunities to review these things, and we should take those opportunities for sure. The long-range transportation plan, 2050, that's just getting off the ground. But what tends to happen is by the time you see it, it's so established already that no real changes can be made. So when I say active following, we may need to check in with what's happening at CUATS, at RPC, and find out where it's at and what's the earliest we can have a look at it, so that we can comment on it before it's too late. And then definitely make comments when it comes out, because they are great about including the public input that they get, whether it's sent privately or whether it's in one of their public outreach events. Micromobility resolution, yeah, we just mentioned that. That's should be a win for us. And then Florida Avenue and University. This is again visionary. Florida Avenue and University Avenue, safe and attractive for all users. These are things we've kind of gone over this past year, I think, or year and a half. And we're concerned, but we don't know yet what's going to happen. I don't think, well, IDOT has funded University Avenue, although they aren't clear on what their plan is yet, right?
Right, they're in design right now. We haven't received any updates yet on where that is.
And then Florida Avenue, do you have a design contract on that one?
Not yet, but we have received 5 statements of qualifications from consultants for that will evaluate, select a consultant, and get a contract underway for the roadway design from Wright to Hillcrest there. Yep.
Okay, any others?
I think Bruce brought up a few meetings ago the idea for a more permanent space for the market at the Lincoln Square parking lot.
And I'm trying,
Yeah, I think we did a resolution about that went forward, so I thought,
right, and that was
We could
the,
go.
as part, that kind of came up as part of the, I forgot what it was called, our Envision
Public realm,
Urbana.
and the public realm study.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
It was kind of happened at the same time. Nice coincidence there.
And then from the public realm study, I'm not quite sure how that relates to the comprehensive plan. They sort of, there's certainly points of contact between them.
Yeah, and I don't quite know how the sausage is made with comprehensive plan. This is my first one, so I'm gonna learn.
Okay. Again, something to follow closely. There are just such fantastic tools online that Urbana and RPC are great about putting this stuff online. You just have to look for it and stay on top of it. So the comprehensive plan they haven't gone, I don't think, to the future, but they certainly have done a pretty good job of explaining where we're at in the past, I think, as far as economic development. The public realm, I don't think there was funding for any of those ideas, but it's good to have a plan and ideas for when funding, so to go for the grants. So I don't know what we can do about the pavilion, was what I'm saying, other than keep an eye out for grants. And there is a council member, I believe it would be on the Market at the Square Commission. There's some kind of Market at the Square.
I'm guessing sometime in the spring when the market gets going again, it shouldn't be too difficult. We can talk about this in the spring, to just talk to the people who sell there and find out whether they're game for some kind of a pavilion to provide some kind of rain protection and permanence for at least some constituency there, and kind of a hub for the whole action. We got to ask them. Not a good idea to lower.
Yeah.
The market's still on for 2 more weeks outdoors, and then it moves indoors. And I'm wondering, did we present this to city council? Because I think what blew our minds was that was just like the price, your presentation. I mean, at the very least, you could just email it to all the city council people and say BPAC, and then economic development, and maybe just make people aware of it would be my next suggestion.
Aware of the fact that we passed a resolution? you mean?
Well, you made a nice presentation with images and cost. And I think we were just surprised at how inexpensive it was
I was
to build.
shocked at
Yeah.
the affordability of what we saw there, so.
I believe it was, I would think that, I can check on that, I would think that Bill sent it to council. Mhm.
Yeah, I would have expected that too, but it's worth verifying.
Yeah.
I'll check too.
And also probably to the staff who's involved with the market at the square, and public arts, for that matter. Make sure that they received a copy.
Oh, I just wanted to add one more. So you remember, like, we talked about, like, Wine Street, and there's no stop sign or no anything beyond Washington, and the next stop sign is actually at Florida. So, like, if somebody wants to cross Wine between, like, even at the middle school or Blair Park, Pennsylvania, like
That was a presentation I made. Yeah, the presentation I made about crosswalks. I'll just ping back. You got a lot here, but I'll ping back about that, because we definitely need to do something about it. And I wouldn't mind reaching out to the community that lives there, because I'm sure they would love to have a crosswalk on Washington and a crosswalk to get to the school.
Oh, in Fairlawn, it's not at Vine though. It's from Anderson to Cottage Grove though. It's at kind of east of there. Mm-hmm.
It's beginning to build a network. I think it's fine. It's that massive intersection. It ends at the big intersection that I suggested we put a traffic circle of some kind, or just a thing. An orange cone would slow down traffic. But yeah, we can come back to that. We don't have to do it tonight.
Was that sidewalks on one side of the street, or?
That's right. Yep. Can't hurt.
One thing I might say, and I like the idea a lot of a Google or a doodle poll, and you choose the goal you'd like to do, but I wonder if doing that offline, like if that violates the Open Meetings Act or not.
At the next meeting, which
Um,
that could be kind of fun. And we can even do it at the next meeting, because there could be, like, we might want to talk about, like, at the next meeting, we can review and just talk about, yeah.
All right, and so for this next item, the no parking in bike lanes ordinance, the short story is that last night I came to council and presented an ordinance about the no parking in bike lanes, which came from BPAC, and the ordinance is on the consent agenda for next Monday. So it is on the fast train to being passed. A couple of highlights that I can pull this up because I do still have my presentation here, same laptop. So I'll just do a quick. so some of the last kind of edits that happened to the resolution is it came out of Traffic Commission, went through legal and city review, was we simplified it a little bit. It came out of BPAC saying no driving, parking, stopping, or standing in bike lanes. This Article 12 that it was going to be inserted into doesn't have driving as part of its like regulation. So we just kind of simplified it and says, you know, and part of like the easiest thing to enforce is like, here's a vehicle in the bike lane, focus on that, and actually took out the loading unloading exception at the advice of the police department, just because any exception or kind of iffiness about it makes it harder to enforce. If it's a hard prohibition, you know, there it is. And so then included the penalties to it of it can be an automatic towing, impounding, and fines that are just kind of typical for any other parking violation in the city. So gives it kind of the official oomph to it. And so we should see that pass next Monday. So I apologize for how long this took over a year to get through council, and that's on me. So I apologize for that. Thank you for your patience, but thank you guys for sending it through. And I know that council is very appreciative of this. Didn't quite give you the praises about the Green Street no parking, but this is more impactful, you know, in all honesty. So, of course, the next step will be to educate police and the university's Division of Public Safety, of course, of the new regulations. Let them know what it's all about. So.
Well, thank you, John, for shepherding this through, and I know online people are incredibly excited about it, and I won't be surprised if other people don't follow our lead, other cities. So thank you, really appreciate
Nice.
this.
Oh, of course.
I had actually, like during the last meeting, this was brought up, so I had actually told the public safety people that Urbana is working on it. So they're aware of it, and once it passes, like I'll reach out to them again.
That sounds great, Sartak. Thank you.
I think the steps that were involved were more than we'd pictured at the beginning, and so, yeah, it's really, really fantastic to get that done, so.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think as BPAC, I think we have to really respect the process, and we have to understand that things are going to take a while. You know, I get frustrated. I'm like, I just want to. It was funny. I was actually even saying it to the mayor. I was like, I just want a crosswalk on Washington. That's all I've ever wanted. And she looked at me. She goes, really? I didn't know that. And I was like, oh my Lord, I've never even made a presentation about it. Like, so it's, how would anyone be able to just read? Like the city has so many other things going on, the last thing they're going to think about is putting a crosswalk on Washington. So until we slowly noodle things through and just kind of keep asking, how can we be good partners with folks who we know are trying to do a lot. So I think that's all I want to say.
I know. Okay. So I wanted to, if it's okay, I'll switch over to staff report. We've got the citizen problem reporter that we have out. If people haven't heard about it, is a GIS-based easy way to provide input about really, it's primarily starting off as infrastructure concerns, and we may grow from there. But I want to pull it up and show you guys because it's a really slick tool. We've already started to get a number of okay. Thanks. I broke it. Sorry, Brian.
Yes, go. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Here we go. I have a website. I'm very sorry. Okay. Somebody needs a new website? Yeah. That is ridiculous. I missed it. Oh, no, too many slashes. It was a slasher flick. Too much.
Portal Urbana, one word.
Portal Urbana. Right. Yeah.
Sounds like Doctor Who or something.
I really need to mute my mic. I've already learned my lesson not to say too much at these meetings. I should have. Thanks, Annie. Okay, so I don't know either. Nope. That's right. Okay, and it is pulling up, but here we go. Citizen problem reporter, which I'll be sure to share our better links so that everybody has access to this, and has a quick disclaimer that comes up. But basically, yep, got in here, let it load, and what this will allow you to do is to zoom in and click a location within the city. So this is fun. Would anybody like to add a concern while I'm sitting here right now?
Orchard in Pennsylvania,
All
there
right,
is
help
a
me out.
massive,
Okay, Pennsylvania.
like, dip in the road where I swear I'm gonna fall off my bike.
Okay, let's get this. So Pennsylvania. There we go. And Orchard is it's my test of my geography. Okay. Here we go. Whereabouts, Annie? This corner of the intersection? It's like right. Okay. Mm-hmm. Would you describe it as a pothole in the street, or is is actually the street itself is like a rutted? Okay. Let's see. I've got pothole in street, other street pavement issue. Okay. Okay. And let's see. I want to. Oh no! Don't do that. Click problem location. Yep. Okay. My GIS specialist Wallace is gonna love it. See, I tried to do this, and he's gonna give me all sorts of tips of John, you did this the wrong way. Okay, so we describe it as
Uneven, yeah, what's black pavement called though?
on the asphalt.
Asphalt, uneven, yep.
Bituminous surface.
No, we're not saying two-minute surface, uneven, yeah, it's an uneven surface,
This is America. We say asphalt.
asphalt. I mean, it's hard to explain, but it basically creates like you go down, up, and over. Like it's almost like you're on like a irregular surface. And yeah, it's irregular, and it's most noticeable on a bike, not really noticeable in a car.
Yep. This is probably HMA is probably gonna be a giveaway. We look for ones that the public works director put in, and he'll use phrases where we'll be like, "Tim, you put this one in, didn't you?" Annie, can I put your name in there? All right, phone number. Oh shoot, I can't do that. After the meeting I'll submit this. No, I'm not gonna have you say your phone number. It's an open meeting. Okay. But anyway, demonstration piece, and then let me be sure to share the link with everybody, after this meeting. So, Citizen Problem Reporter. Yeah, tell your friends. And you could add.
Then Wallace was telling me you follow it, was saying that you actually follow the path of
Yes,
it.
You can. And so now I'm kind of like locked into this, but yes, you can see the. My admin will not take kindly to that. No, but I'll definitely, we'll wrap this up afterwards. But yeah, you can see the progress of like, it's been received, it's been assigned to somebody, it's been resolved, things like, because then it comes into our work order system for that. So yeah, you can add photos, all sorts of neat stuff.
So the message comes by email to the person who put it in,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
the link to follow it.
Yep.
So this is like the see, click, fix type thing that, okay.
You got it. Yep. Okay. Status Citizen Problem Reporter. And time. We got 15 minutes. So I'm going to breeze through a few other updates real quick. Okay. For the speed studies and traffic calming, I've got just some of the initial results from our 6 speed studies we did. 5 of them were related to EQL locations. And just with preliminary findings, I'd say that 3 of the locations had like 85th percentile speed, 35 mile per hour or below. The other 3 had 85th percentile above 35 miles per hour. So we're just kind of try to come up with, what's a reasonable way to. What are some reasonable thresholds that we want to try to implement as we do more of this investigations? What will be actionable, what will not? And so we'll just kind of work through those details as we continue. But for the ITEP designs, we do have a consultant getting us agreements right now for those designs. We had a budget amendment to go through council next Monday, get us a chance to sign those and move those along. EQL designs, we had preliminary plans come in for the EQL locations for sidewalk and streetlights. Have some initial budget check at that point, and now we're moving into the next phase of kind of the more detailed design effort. Still looking for bid packages to go out to contractors in winter, looking at construction next year, and there'll be the locations where we'll have sidewalk on one side or the other. We're going to have some public involvement with the neighborhood residents there. Let them know, to explain the process we went through to evaluate the merits of one side or the other, explain our recommendation, and ask for their input on those. And then I think, I did mention this just earlier, we have for the kind of larger Florida Avenue roadway project, we have qualifications presented by consultants, because we have to do a qualification-based selection for the federal funding we're going to use for design. So we got an evaluation process that we're going to go through in November, select somebody and get that process started. Same story for the North Lincoln Avenue design. It's a project that's part of our SS4A grant. Just today had the submissions due, got 6 of them for that project. So got some healthy choices there to get those designs going, with, of course, the hope that, hopefully we get funding through the SS4A grant program. I'm feeling optimistic and hopeful about that. But at least having the design ready will give us a better chance for getting funding, or if we have to go through kind of a plan B of, okay, well, we're not getting the big grant to take this all on at once. We're going to have to break this up into pieces that we can digest with regular, funding or regular cash flow that we have. Just kind of at least gives us in a better position to make decisions. And I will share, unfortunately, we did not get the Highway Safety Improvement Program grant that we applied for Florida Race. So we took a crack at it, didn't get that one for safety improvements at that intersection. Still an opportunity to apply for that next year. So that's all I got.
The designs for North Lincoln, are you planning on having different scenarios? Are they going to evaluate what's feasible there? I know you
Yes.
had put out for possibly more than one scenario.
That's right, yes, and that is in, our intention is to have a fairly longer, like, phase one planning process where we look at, verifying the feasibility of the road diet that we think would be a good solution for a lot of the safety problems we have up there. And the two main alternatives we'd be looking at would be adding bike lanes to the cross-section, or instead of the bike lanes on the street, having a multi-use path, most likely on the west side of the corridor. And so we'd want to evaluate those. And a part we included in the SS4A grant application, I think really would make a lot of sense, whether we get the grant or not, would be a demonstration of the road diet, temporary demonstration of the road diet as a, this would be kind of like the hitting people over the head with the public input, like, well, tell us what you think about this. But in reality, it's to see how it plays out. So some of the details we have in mind for that.
Yeah, I did hear that sometimes, people are all upset in a meeting, but when you actually put it out there and they can experience it, there's a meeting of minds about it,
Yeah. Yep.
Which places had the high speeds in the study? You said there were 6 of them.
Oh, sure. Preliminarily, I'd say the Broadway Avenue from University to Country Club, the intersection of Cottage Grove and Fair Lawn, which is only two-way stop control right now, and Burr Street from Broadway to Cunningham. Yeah, those is an initial idea of maybe the 35 mile per hour, 80, maybe a threshold for 85th percentile speed. But we'll yeah. Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
I'm sorry, the Lincoln Avenue Corridor Study is currently in phase one, which is visioning. Phase two is future projected demographics. And they do already have a lot of current demographics on the website, which you guys can access with the handy Tootsie Roll that I gave you all, or I'll show you the website, but in just a second. But several of you, or at least Danny, went to the public outreach event, which was held at the Alumni Center last week, and they had wonderful, huge maps for people to put their suggestions on. They had this overall visioning, and all of this stuff it's not too late, you can do it on the website, but you need to do it by Friday. They're taking input until Friday. So there is a survey that you'll be greeted with, but this is just a couple things that you're not going to see on the website because they were at this meeting, and that was seeing what people are calling for. There was huge participation from the walking and biking community, and if you look at the demographics that they show on the website, the walking and biking community is much larger in this area of influence than it is in the rest of the city. Far fewer people have access to a car, and higher poverty rate. None of this is surprising because it's a lot of students. So, but it can be difficult to figure out. So let me just say a couple things, like virtually all these things were enhancements that people wanted for pedestrian and bicycle safety. One person, I tried to spot drivers ever speaking here, because I figured it's great that everybody cares about pedestrian and bicycles, but surely there's some drivers who are concerned about what's going to happen to them, and they will show up for sure. But at present, there was one that said, educate and encourage pedestrians to signal their intention to cross the street. And I think that's a role for us to try and get pedestrians to understand what they need to do to ensure their safety and not traumatize, lose their life and traumatize the poor driver for the rest of their life. And we haven't gone into that a lot. It's part of our mission, though, is education. Another one was slow traffic on Lincoln without pushing it into the neighborhoods, which is a thing that happens a lot. If it's over constrained, people will figure out, oh, I can just go down to Orchard. There's no stop signs there. So this is where, again, I was disappointed that no one came up with make it 25 miles per hour in the whole area of influence, not just the university side, but in the Urbana side, so that people aren't saying, oh, I can do 30 on Orchard and have no stop signs and no nothing. And 30 on Orchard is not fun for the residents who live there.
I had a discussion with Rita about how much of a sphere they were taking into the study. And there was a picture there that showed how far they would go. But they really, they are budgeted for what was the Burgundy section, and that's what they're really looking at. But she goes, yeah, we will, we'll be aware that this is going to affect streets surrounding it, but we also have to know, what we're taking on. But
Right.
Yeah, and so that, but, BPAC can help by suggesting lowering speed limits throughout all residential areas.
I think it's really incumbent on BPAC, because I don't know that RPC will do that. They're more into the construction and the design, and I don't know that they're going to suggest the entire neighborhood be reduced.
Yeah, no, they are constrained to,
Yeah.
a section.
I see. That's what you're saying. Okay, they are required to do the level of service. Interestingly enough, with everyone being bikes and peds who's commenting here, the level of service is for cars. What's the level of service for cars? So, and not for bikes and peds, but they will be looking at that in other ways. And what you see here is that really the level of service isn't as awful as you, and this is not on the website, that's why I'm showing it. The level of service is not as awful as you might think, because it says here, level of service is measured in seconds of delay per vehicle. 55 seconds of delay per vehicle or less is considered acceptable in suburban areas for peak period conditions. And there's only one intersection here in which the level of service is really bad. Actually, the orange also exceeds. Orange and red are exceeding that 55 seconds per vehicle, and that's at Pennsylvania and Lincoln Avenue is where, and it's the southbound cars there are experiencing a large delay. And I did see somewhere someone complaining about southbound traffic backing up all the way to Michigan.
I find LOS to be nonsense because, like, a cyclist can't even use this street right now, and pedestrians have to run across it. And so, to me, like, I find the and I drive on this street frequently, so I find it, to me, it's like a metric that I can't take too seriously.
It's a little bit of a relic, but unfortunately, it's still really well established in our transportation law. I think the Department of Transportation is going to be looking at how they use this, given that, Pete Buttigieg is in charge of it. And then also, a little bit further south also, the level of service is a little bit unacceptable there for the southbound and the westbound. Just to be aware that this is something that how they're going to use it, we need to keep an eye on. And so finally, this is their website, which you can either get you with the QR code, or I think the website's on there. I got those from the staff at RPC, and try to get this survey done before Friday, or by Friday. Okay, that's it. Do we have, Annie, do we have time? We don't have time for your presentation, do we? Unless people want to stay later.
I can summarize. The city, someone bought the wrong color bulbs. They're replacing light bulbs with blue bulbs instead of warm yellow bulbs. And so the presentation is why blue bulbs are bad and warm bulbs are better for property values, bugs, humans, so forth. So that's the presentation. I'll be happy to give it. I did not realize that my neighbors were experiencing it, and that my neighbors are climbing up on ladders and taking out the light bulbs and are putting things inside of the light bulbs. I said, this is stupid. you just got to let the city know, someone just bought the wrong color light bulbs. So anyway, that is the presentation, and I'm happy to share it with someone at the city. I don't know who would be interested in it, but I do know if I drop it into the neighborhood listserv, there will be outrage, which I find unattractive. So I just think someone just bought the wrong color light bulbs.
Maybe adding that to the GIS map John showed us.
Dan.
Maybe the listserv could benefit from that too.
Yep.
And there is one right outside my window, and if that light bulb, there's a second, I have 2 city street lights, so there's one, I keep thinking my back porch light's on, and I'm like, oh, it's that damn blue bulb. And then if the bulb, there's one that would get replaced like 20 feet from my bedroom, which would just about push me over the edge. I as well would go rogue and take it out. So it would just be wise to return the blue bulbs.
Well, of course, this is a public works issue.
Yeah. So I second with Dan. I think that'd be a really great direct way to put that in as a concern. And if we want to have announcements, should we do a vote to extend the meeting, or you want to just adjourn?
Oh, we missed announcements, yeah. I think we should extend it. I was going to say future topics I could just solicit, but announcements maybe we should make. Do I have a motion to extend the meeting by 5 minutes?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Okay. Anyone in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Okay, that motion passes. This is for announcements, Annie.
I know, I have one.
Oh, fantastic.
We're not gonna,
Oh,
and next
fantastic.
time, we should watch the
I
4
probably
minute.
should have made
That
it.
We
is
should
almost
also
5
add this
minutes.
to the agenda for
Yeah.
next time, the 4-minute video. It's worth watching, it's really great. That's my announcement, and I'm ready to go whenever. Oh, okay, so the announcement is, there's the Urbana Witches Ride coming up, Sunday, October 29th, 3:30 to 5:30. It will start at 25 o'clock. We will do a short 3-mile loop. We will meet up with a walking parade of kids and parents and other folks. And then we will ride our bikes over to Rosebowl Tavern and have drinks. And if you don't wish to ride a bike, you are more than welcome to put on a witch's costume and walk over to the Rosebowl Tavern and join us. It's just a good time.
Is witch attire recommended?
Which attire is recommended? We are also open to other costumes. We have had a variety of costumes arrive at the event. It's just sort of fun. Yeah, it's just sort of fun. So, just a fun event. And it's fun to ride. Honestly, I enjoy riding a bike with a cape. So, I don't know.
Okay, other announcements?
Just really quickly, we had the Bike to Work Day event last month. Bike to Work Day, Light the Night events. For Bike to Work Day, we had a record 1,050 or so pre-registered and more than 100 walk-ins. We gave out about 1,100 pink Bike Month t-shirts. They were very popular. And if somebody wants to buy them, you can go to Champaign County Bikes and buy the Barbie t-shirts. For Light the Night, we had the event on like the 19th. That would have been the BPAC meeting last month. And we installed 850 bike light sets. This year we had 3 locations, Alma Mater, Helene Gateway, and we moved the 3rd location from Bike Center to Eikenberry Quad, which did not see as many people as I had expected, but maybe next year there will be more. And the final thing is that we have applied for the Bike Friendly University. The survey that was sent to by League of American Bicyclists, we received about 320 responses, and hopefully we'll hear from them soon about our results.
And there was whatever the other Saturday event where you were, the parking day.
Oh yeah, we had the parking day event
made him
also.
give me one of these.
I don't remember what day it was. Like it was like this September 30th or something like that, because they moved it from a Friday to Saturday for some reason. But it's yeah, and we also did a learn how to ride class last week for university students. So that was pretty nice. That was, I think, the first time ever that there was a learn how to ride class for adults on campus. And 3 people attended, and Cynthia and Lily, they taught that class.
Are there any other announcements? Okay, I will send out an email soliciting agenda items. Okay, thank you very much. This meeting's adjourned.